Like, if you don't promote a buying atmosphere on the phone, you're missing out on a huge, huge, huge opportunity. It's so easy to do. You know, like, a couple just phone tips randomly is when you're done making a phone call, after you get, firm up, get directions, just say something like, oh, Mrs. Jones, shoot, I meant to ask you, like, does your husband need to be there, or do you make the decisions for the kitchen? And then Mrs. Jones will usually be like, I make the decisions for the kitchen. And she's taking ownership over the buying process before anything about buying has come up. If you want a little bit of a softer way to say it, it's just, hey, Mrs. Jones, does your husband need to be there, or do you handle the kitchen stuff? Like, just adding that into the end of your approach will make your presentations more about buying. The second that somebody tells me on the phone that they have Cutco, my response is perfect, especially if you're already familiar with it. I don't even have to do the presentation. I'll just show you what's new, and we'll just keep it really quick. If you want to buy something, great. If not, it's totally cool. It's just a straight up, like, I'm just going to keep it real quick. If you want to buy some things, great. If not, it's totally cool. Because when you have to think about it from the customer's end. Like, a lot of people who I see have seen probably 5 Cutco presentations in the last 10 years. And I just want to communicate, like, I'm not even going to give you the spiel. I'm just going to show you what's new. If you want to buy some things, great. If not, it's totally cool. And we'll just keep it really quick. And it's casual, and it just promotes, like, buying. You always want to keep the context on buying. How do you set up your presentation? This is your next opportunity to control the context of your presentations. What do you do to set it up? Like, certainly when you're newer to the business, you're not going to have all the extra pieces and a block and all these other things to show in your demo. You want to start accumulating that for sure. But if you're an FSM and you're still doing, roll-ups, I would challenge you to just bring a block into your presentation. When I walk into a demo, I'm holding an Ultimate in my left elbow, a saucepan in my left hand, there's a bag over my right shoulder, and my right hand is open for the shake at the door. And when I set up at the table, it's like an Ultimate set, next to a table knife, next to a steak knife, next to a hunting knife, next to pruners, next to a flatware spread, and a white thermoresin flatware spread. And that's just all out in front of them. It's a buying atmosphere. They're pulling out knives. It's just a buying atmosphere. Everything's about buying, and that's the way that I want to keep the focus of the presentation. I want to keep it focused on buying. And I want to start to identify, I want to gather as much information as I can in the short time I have so I can start to offer $1,000 options of things to buy. First tip, if you're new, get the samples. I think you need to be at 10K, but you get to order cookware samples. You can only order it one time in your entire career. It's the only time you can even access cookware, I think under 50%, where you get like 3 pieces of cookware. I think it's like $700 worth of cookware that you can buy for 180 bucks. And if you're not, like, you have to learn, you have to invest in yourself. One of the funniest moments I had with, like, I was already a good rep too. Like, it was after my second year selling Cutco. I went up at, I think it was either at an RDC or a year-end banquet, but I went up and asked a good friend of mine, who a lot of people from New York will know, RJ Agarwal, who was a beast at selling flatware at the time. And I just went up and I asked him, like, hey man, like, I got like a $500 average order. I'm getting pretty good at this, but like, I'm really just never selling flatware. Like, what should I be doing differently about selling flatware? Like, I've heard it's my belief in it, but like, I do believe in it, but I'm just not selling it. And he was like, well, do you put it out every single presentation? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, dude, what do you want me to tell you? Like, you gotta just put it out, and someone's gonna luckily buy it. I think a flatware sample costs you $20 to order, and if you're not showing it every time, you're not gonna sell it. So it's the more Cutco that you show, the more Cutco that you're going to sell, for sure. It's important to note the knives are the bread and butter, and they will always be the bread and butter. Like, some of my biggest orders this year have been not knives. But the knives are always the main thing I'm trying to sell. Having said that, specifically, I start right away in my presentation with cookware and flatware, because my attitude is such that the second that Mrs. Jones sets an appointment up with me on the phone, I'm selling knives. That's like a lot. Like, no matter what goes down in that demo, I'm selling knives. And if I don't sell knives, then it was just the 20% of people that don't buy from me, because I probably had about an 80% closing percentage. So if someone doesn't buy, they were just part of the 20% the whole time. But the second that I'm invited over to a house and you're home when I knock on the door, knives were sold before the folk walked into the house. Like, the knives are sold. So I'm going to start with the cookware and the flatware, because they're maybes. They're maybes. Most customers don't even know that we make cookware and flatware. So when you walk in, when you cookware and flatware, I want to start with that first, because that's probably when she's looking at a saucepan and she's seen a few Cutco presentations, that's probably what she's thinking, like, oh, I didn't even know you guys made cookware. So take advantage of that. Show it first. Mechanically, the way that I do it, and if I would recommend doing the demo completely the way your manager taught you to do it until you're at about 10K in sales. Once you're over 10K in sales, I would start to change your demo a little bit structurally to start to gear it towards selling more. But you need to do the demo the way you learned it for the first 10K, because you definitely learned so much just fundamentals about selling doing it in that style. But when you're ready to change things up, I recommend starting instantly with cookware and flatware, going over it all, which I'll do in a second, like actually pitching it, and then not closing, and then waiting till the end to close. Because most people struggle, at least my experience, I struggled to sell cookware and flatware for my first 100 grand, maybe 200 grand in sales. I never sold cookware and flatware. And I think the reason why is because my transitions were awful at the end of my presentation. You know, I would close on a homemaker, and then I'd be like, so, is it okay if I tell you a little bit about waterless cookware? You know, and it was just terrible. It was just, the transition was the problem. The content was fine, but the transition was just horrendous. So you want to explain that stuff up front so that at the end, when you're actually trying to close and sell it, all you're doing is going over pricing. You're not explaining why 1810 stainless steel is the best and what's great about, you know, aluminum core cookware. So be able to sell it through a story. You know, right after I do all my intro to my demo about the non-Cutco stuff, when we're ready to actually start, I say, so, Mr. Jones, like, as far as Cutco is concerned, obviously we're talking about knives, and then, you know, I get the head nod. I'm not sure, though, if you're familiar with waterless cookware, by any chance. And then, you know, Mr. Jones always says no, and if she says yes, you just gotta tell her she doesn't know what, you know, politely tell her she is wrong. She does not know about waterless cookware. And you need to have a good, tight 2-minute pitch. Shorten your demo and make things quicker. Back in the day, the big ate the small, like in business and just in life. Like nowadays, the fast eat the slow. Like that's what's going on in 2014. The big don't eat the small anymore, the fast eat the slow. So if you're still doing a super slow presentation, like people got places to be and things to do. You know, tighten it up and keep people, just keep people like focused on like what really matters. You know, find out whatever you can cut from your demo after you're over 10K and just cut it. And only say the things that get you CPO and referrals. You know, so Mrs. Jones, I'm not, you know, obviously we're talking about knives. I'm not sure if you're familiar though with waterless cookware by any chance. So again, like my mom's a caterer, she loves Cutco knives, but she'll tell you it's not even close. The best stuff that we make is our cookware. And that line comes right after, by the way, they're looking at a picture of me and my mom and Earl Kelly on stage from a year at Banquet. If you don't have a picture of your mom or your dad and your present in your blue book, you're leaving CPO on the table. When people see you with your parents, it humanizes you so much. Like you're not like someone there to sell knives. Like you're this person who's got like a mom and like a dad, and you know, and you want to engage people on an emotional level. And my whole demo, I'm telling stories through my mom. The whole time, I'm telling how my mom has 2 Hardy slicers and an Ultimate Block. Like I just have license to say whatever I want about Cutco because I just sell it through a story of through the lens of how my mother perceives it. So, you know, my mom's a caterer, she loves the knives, she'll tell you it's not even close, the cookware is the best stuff that we make. So are you familiar with waterless cookware? So it's pretty cool to do broccoli every now and then. And I think we have more talks on cookware throughout the conference, so I'm not gonna get super technical. I'm gonna get very technical in a second with flatware. But you just all say on the cookware thing, and if you have questions, like you can grab me after, is just have a tight 2-minute pitch on waterless cookware. And drop it like early in the presentation. Tight 2-minute pitch on waterless cookware. So it's knives, it's cookware, it's flatware, which again is super optimal if you have the flatware out on the table. So again, Mr. Jones, our flatware is 1810 stainless steel. You definitely don't need 1810 stainless steel. Like, you don't need it, Mrs. Jones. All flatware is either 1810, 18.8, or 18.6. I don't even know what that means, but it's the quality of the stainless. 1810 is by far the best. It's nice just because it stays shiny. It's really, really scratch resistant. In stores, you can find 1810 for around $200 per place setting. You know, it's not cheap, but it's definitely the best. And you know, it's some of the stuff I've been selling the most of, because most of the people who I see already have a set of the knives. which is another great little throwaway comment to put into your demo, because it's just a soft sell on, like, obviously you're about to be, copping some knives from me, Mrs. Jones. Like, everybody's telling, most people I see already have the knives. That's why I sell the flatware so much. But if you don't got the knives, that's an implicit, you can pick if you're catching what I'm doing there. You should start doing that in your presentation. Again, this is some of the stuff I sell the most of. Even people who don't need it have been buying it because it's so great. I just always say that, just because I hate hearing I don't need it with flatware, because that's my most common objection that I get with flatware. Even people who don't need it, they're just buying it. That's just going on, even people who don't need it. And I'm explaining it, and then I'm just not dropping prices, and I'm going to wait for it at the end. But I've explained cookware, I've explained flatware, and it took me like 4 minutes to do. And it's out in front of them, and they're thinking about cookware and flatware, and now I'm shifting my focus back to knives, because I need to make sure that the bread and butter of my presentation is money. Like, never get caught up in thinking that cookware and flatware is more important than the knives. The knives are the bread and butter, but they're already a lot. The cookware and the flatwares are maybes, so you want to give them the best chance to become yeses. Again, increasing your average order is about selling the things that you can sell $1,000 of. You have to start to look for, like, when you're out getting referrals, if you say, who do you know who would get a set for like a beach house? And I don't care where you come from. I didn't start selling Cutco in the nicest area, I started selling pure middle class. And the more demos you do, and the better you get at asking the right questions, you can sell Cutco to whoever you want to sell Cutco to. And I constantly say, who do you know who would just get a set for a beach house? Because if a beach house is in play, then I got more things that I can sell $1,000 of. So I'm trying to gather as much information as I can so I can offer things that cost $1,000, like a set of knives for a beach house, or just any of the other things I can sell two of. As far as accessories, like, don't focus too much on accessories. Like, know the accessories for sure, but I'll tell you, when I was new, and like, when people are getting better at the job, they're like into accessories, and it's important to know everything about them, but again, your career's not going to change based on pizza cutter. It's just not. But it can change on if you get really good at selling cookware or flatware, or you get really good at asking the right questions that lead to like other opportunities for you to sell $1,000 or something. But a pizza cutter or a garlic press is never going to change your career. My biggest tip with the accessories is just get some people excited about them and just find a way to give them to them for free. It's easy to get people excited about the accessories, and you always want to give people for free what they're excited about. Like, when I sell a signature set, for instance, I break it down by saying, I hold my hand over the extension parts of it, the last three pieces, and I say, so Mrs. Jones, this is our medium set, and I cover up the Hardy Slicer, Petit Santoku, and the cheese knife. And I say, this is our basic set, it's a carving set, a bread knife, a chef knife, and the small knives. So I try and minimize how many knives that sounds like. Butcher knife gets thrown in with the small knives. It's a carving set, a chef knife, a bread knife, and the small knives. The medium set is that basic set, except it also comes with a Hardy Slicer, Petit Santoku, cheese knife, and shears. The only 4 things I do names and uses on. And then a complete set is the same thing as the medium set, it just also comes with an extra larger paring knife, comes with our boning knife, which is our best knife for chicken, a cleaver, and a knife for fish. And again, Mrs. Jones, in stores, basic set of Shun's $4,000, basic set of Wusthoff's about $3. From Cutco, our complete set, which has more knives than those sets, and it's guaranteed forever, is cheaper by a lot. Our complete set is X, our medium set is Y, and our basic set is Z. And everything we do is put on 5-pay. It just means you put down 1/5 just as a deposit on whatever set it is. So for math, like if it's $1,000, today it's just $200, then 4 times over the next 4 months it's just like $200. And then I don't close. So I do not close at that point. That is where typically I would say, so which set would you get the most value out of? That's always my closing question. Which set would you get the most value out of? I don't close there though, because I'm trying to set up the transition to sell flatware and cookware. That's where like my focus goes at this point. Right after I show the knife sets, I'm gearing people towards buying the signature, and now I'm trying to sell flatware, cookware, bigger steak knives, and anything else that I can add on to that order. And I say, so last two things, and I say it like that to make it seem, short, and there's not a lot left to do. Last 2 things, Mr. Jones, is the flatware. Again, 1810 stainless steel. In stores, you can find it for around $200 per setting. From Cutco, when it first came out, it was around $139. And now we do a deal where when you're doing service for 12, which would be a standard flatware order, it's just a tad over $100 a set. And I think it's the best deal that we do on anything. And it's some of the stuff I sell the most of, because most people I see already have a set of the knives. I say that line like 10 times. Some of the stuff I sell the most of, because most people I see already have a set of the knives. And it's just nice if you drop a fork or a spoon down the garbage disposal, it's replaced for free. And the most flatware just has a butter knife, but this actually has a functional knife. And again, I love the knives and the cookware and everything too, but I actually use our flatware more than anything else that Cutco makes. My most used thing that Cutco makes is the table knife. I'm huge on selling bigger steak knives, but I tell people table knife all day because I use it all the time myself. So I pitch flatware through stories and just by keeping it as simple as possible. Last thing, Mr. Jones, you just get into the cookware. I have a price comp covering up the Aspire cookware chef set, so they don't even look at that and try and buy a super small set of the cookware. I put an all-clad price comp. I just went to WilliamSonoma.com, went to cookware sets, searched price, high to low, printed out the most expensive set I could find. It was $5,400, and that's what I compare Cutco to. And it's right off the Williams-Sonoma website. And I compliment it. The fastest way to not sell flatware or cookware is to rip their stuff. You compliment it. They have Calphalon, compliment it. They have All-Clad, compliment it. And again, Mr. Jones, so that basics, a full set of All-Clad is $5,400. On sale was $4,000. I printed this out a year ago. It's probably more expensive now. From Cutco, again, full set of our stuff, same size sets, $23.99. Our medium set, and we do a basic set, which is a dedicated set, is $16.49. And then we do our complete set, is the basic set. It just comes with all the add-ons, like the wok and the stock pot are huge. They're much bigger pieces. The griddles are great for breakfast stuff. And a complete set is $35.99. And so, Mr. Jones, if you are, just so you know, if you are combining cutlery and or flatware and or cookware, it gets bundled as what's called a package. It just gets discounted again by a little bit more. It comes with a lot of our kitchen tools and gadgets just for free. So, starting with the knives, which set do you think you would get the most value out of? And now knives with bread and butter. And this is my main sale that's going to happen at this presentation. I'm either going to sell a set, pieces, or nothing. I'm hoping I'm not selling nothing, because usually flatware cookware is not going so hot if you sell nothing with the knives. So starting with the knives, implying that we will certainly be finishing somewhere else. And guys, the transition is the hardest part and the biggest challenge you'll find with selling cookware and flatware is transitioning into being able to close on it effectively. So set that transition up smooth. You're going to sell a set, pieces, or nothing with knives. Great. What did you think about the flatware? Did you love it? How much service would you need? Usually you have an idea if they're into flatware or not at this point, so it doesn't always go academically perfect. Half the time I show flatware, they just instantly are like, oh yeah, I definitely don't need flatware. And I get that all the time, and I'm sick of it. So I remember thinking how do I say something to this that benefits me in some way? And when people say, so whenever someone says I'm just definitely not interested in cookware, I'm definitely not interested in flatware, I said, okay, cool. And hey, if I'm ever showing you something and you're just there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to buy this, just tell me, and we'll skip that part. Because that also implies that if you don't tell me that I can't show it to you, there is a chance in hell that you will buy it, is the subtle thing there. So, Ms. Jones, by the way, if I'm ever showing you something like this and you're there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to buy this stuff, just tell me and we'll skip that part. So we can get to parts where you got a chance in hell to buy it. So focus on the things again, and the only things that I'm focusing on and showing them when I switch to the next thing after flatware didn't work is something that costs $1,000. I'm not going to tell them about the way that, the pizza cutter's not really sharp on the edge and it's safe, but it still works really well even though it's not sharp. I forget why, but I swear to God, it's great. I'm just not going to get into, I just don't want to get into that because I don't want to be someone who's trying to sell somebody a $30 thing. I just want my time to be worth a certain amount of money per hour, and I just don't want to be someone who's trying to sell someone something that's $30. I just would rather say, yeah, it's great and it comes for free with anything that you spend $1,000 on. That's I wouldn't say that, but that's the subtle, attitude that I exude, So again, just focus on how you're actually closing on the stuff that's not Cutco. If you want to have one takeaway from this talk, get good at actually setting up the close for the non-knives. Because most people in the room who are over 10 or 15K, they do know that there's a 3-ply aluminum core in the cookware with stainless steel on the inside and outside, and they do know our Flatware is 1810 stainless steel, and they do know about thermoresin and everything like that, but like, that's not why people buy it. Like, people don't buy it because of 440A steel, they don't buy it because of a multi-ply. They buy it because it's the best, and it's easy, and it's guaranteed forever. Get good. Another tip that's something that's a jackpot if you can get good at it is get good at like getting people to throw out their stuff on the spot that they don't like. Like I always tell, like as far as accessories, like pretty much my only comment with accessories is like Mr. Jones, like it's just nice to have your whole kitchen like streamlined with Cutco. So if like anything's ever messed up, it's replaced. Like just honestly, like just throw out like these old peelers and stuff that have been in here forever. Like it's nice to have just Cutco. Like I want people to like throw their stuff out. If you can do a trade-in, like same thing with knives. If you can do a trade-in special selling a knife set, you don't even want to look at the trunk in my car. It's like the most dangerous place to randomly put one's hand. It's just straight knives. And it's because I always am doing trade-in specials for a couple reasons. First of all, I don't get returns. Like I never get returns. Every now and then, but almost never. And part of that's because if they return them, I got their knives. Like I literally have the knives. So, what are you gonna, I got them already. And people commit to the purchase when they're trading in their stuff. So I'll, again, it's just, if you're trading, the verbiage is up to you. I say, with Cutco, obviously we want to incentivize people switching. Like a lot of people will have decent knives and they say, I spent a few $100 on these, I don't want to just have that cost be thrown out. Oh, well, that's perfect because Cutco gives you a few gadgets and accessories for free when you trade in your old knives. And I'm just bonusing accessories and taking people's old knives so that they're locked in on Cutco, they're ready for it, it's not a maybe. It's a firming up of the order. So get good at getting people to throw out their old gross stuff, Like everybody in this room knows that when you're older and you have your own kitchen, you're gonna have every single thing that Cutco makes. Like you will. You know for a fact that when you open up that drawer, it's like turned in service for days in there. Like you got all of that stuff. And that's like what's gonna happen. So it's like how do you casually convey that to a customer without seeming like, like a psychotic person? Like how do you casually convey that, Mr. Jones? Like, I was just at this conference and like for sure every single person who sells Cutco will have everything that Cutco makes when they're older. It's like, how do you take that and convey it to a customer? Because that's all that I'm trying to do in my presentation. Like, I'm not talking about disadvantages of common knives. I'm not talking even much about the history of the company. I'm really not doing many names and uses. I'm really not doing that much features and benefits because most of the people already have Cutco. I'm just talking about like, why should I spend $1,000 right now today? It's like what I'm coming after. I'm telling people, hey, Mr. Jones, like you can use plastic forks and knives and spoons for the rest of your life and live a fulfilled, happy life. Like you definitely don't need Cutco. Like you would totally be cool without Cutco. But if you're going to use it every single day, you should probably have something that's decent. You don't have to, but probably you should. And if you are going to have something that's decent, then without a doubt you should have Cutco. Not because of the quality, but because of the guarantee. It's just all the way people view expenses and like, you're going to spend the money anyway replacing your stuff over and over again to not have as high quality stuff as Cutco. So like, the whole thing you're doing when you're getting Cutco is like, it's going to sting you when you get it because it's not cheap. But if you can bite the bullet for 5 months, like every single thing we do is split into 5 payments. If you can bite the bullet for 5 months, you're just done with the kitchen forever. So, now that you've seen the product and heard the guarantee, I'm just going to show you some of our different sets, and we'll go from there. And you do whatever you want to do. If you want to get anything a la carte, that's cool. If you want to get anything as a set, great. Sets are definitely discounted. Do whatever it is that you want to do, and we'll go from there. And it's just all pure buying atmosphere. So, again, get the samples, get confident in your pitch, being tight on the flatware, tight on the cookware, show it every single time, make sure that you're keeping the knives as the primary focus of your presentation, and get creative even. Like, one of the funniest things I ever heard was a guy, if you're newer you won't know the name, but if you've been around for a little bit you will, a guy named Hubert Fan, who is one of the best residential Cutco reps who's ever sold Cutco, like, period. He sold 100K for a summer, I think twice, and he's a beast. And I saw him he put on Facebook or something one time, that like he had sold like, that now it's like his thing, is he takes from the serving pieces of the flatware, he takes a thermoresin sugar spoon serving piece, and he calls it an ice cream spoon. And he sells ice cream spoons in his presentations left and right. And they're like 30 bucks a pop, and he sells sets of 10 all day. Ice cream spoons this guy's selling. You know, like, find a way to answer a need. You know, apparently people in Hawaii have a desperate need for ice cream spoons, and no one else was willing to sell it to him. So Hubert found a way that he could make some money doing that. He's filling a need. So, and tell stories is the final tip that I'll give you before I'm done, is be able to tell a story through every single thing that you're selling. You should be able to know, based on who referred you to the person, where that person's kids go to school, where they lived. You should have a general idea about who they're going to peripherally know in their life. You know, I always tell a story at the beginning of every presentation of mine about someone that they will probably know who changed my career through referrals. I tell that story every single time. You know, I know based on who referred me to you, where their kids went to school, and where you live, I'm going to have a pretty good idea about some of the people that you will peripherally know in your life. They don't have to be your best friend, but maybe I know that you have a third grader at the Episcopal Academy, and I'm just going to drop the name of someone who's a mover and shaker parent at Episcopal who has kids in like 4 grades that everybody knows. And I'm going to talk about how, Anna Cassidy changed my career through referrals. You know, like she bought a bunch of Cutco and it was great, but she referred me to like 20 people, and I'll probably get to sit down with 12 or 13 of them, and I might sell 12 or 13 grand at those demos, but those people are going to introduce me to the next 120 to 130 people who I get to sit down with. So, you know, like Mrs. Cassidy might have changed my entire summer before it started, because I knew most of, like, I guess, old people who had older kids at Episcopal, but not the younger crowd. And I think she referred me to like 7 younger moms, and now I'm honestly like seeing all the lower school moms at Episcopal, and like I'm gonna have a shot to hit, you know, goal X, Y, or Z. Like tell it through a story. You know, find a way to sell it through a story, because most of the time people are just trying to get to the end of the presentation. The times that they're actually engaged that you can really sell are when you're telling a story. That's why I recommend strongly telling stories through your mom. It's very easy for a customer to relate to. They're like, yo, I got, you know, a daughter, a son, I get what you're doing, and now that I see, you know, and it just humanize it and tell it through a story. Find a way to pitch through a story. Same thing with the flatware. I sell white flatware all day, which I never did. I was very critical of the thermoresin flatware for most of my career. You know, I hated it. I was like, doesn't look good. People want stainless. And then I actually did a presentation where I was training one in the room. Where's George Furco? See in here? He's got a deal breaker. There he is. There's George. Everybody say hi to George. So I was field training George one time, and this lady, Robin Abbey Qatar, she was the only person who's ever had white flatware that I've ever done a presentation for. Like, I've never seen someone who had like Cutco cookware, I don't think, at a presentation. I'm trying to think if I've ever had, like maybe once. And like maybe once or twice flatware. That's why there's a huge opportunity to sell it. But this lady had white flatware, and I put out the stainless, and she was like, oh, and I don't know, maybe we didn't used to make the stainless. I don't even know the history of Cutco well enough to know if that's the case, but she was really like the stainless, and she was buying a few other knives, and I just said straight up, like, hey, if you want to trade in your old flatware, I'll give you those other 3 knives, like, for free. And she was like, okay, deal. So I walked out with, like, and I think she had bought a set of knives as well. It was like a 3K order, and I was walking out with a full set of traditional white flatware. So I was like, this demo was like, just went ham. Like, this demo was sick. I'm walking away with like equally as much Cutco as she is, and I really want to use the white flatware. I was like psyched about it, you know? So I have this flatware, and I'm like, man, like, is that sanitary to use? I asked my mom, I was like, can you use flatware that was someone else's? And she's like, you're an idiot, Tyler. Like, what do you think is happening at a restaurant? Like, you get a new flatware every single time? And I was like, touche. Like, restaurant is pretty good example of why this is okay. And so after we washed the flatware, I started using it, and I realized that I love it because it's not delicate and fragile. Like, in my house where I grew up, as I tell a story to you right now, we have nice white ceramic plates, like a lot of people have. And we have like the cut up, scratched to hell pink plate that's been in our house for like 12 years. And you know, when I was in high school growing up, my whole life, it was like you would plan when you would eat like Tyson's chicken or whatever you were gonna cook. based on like access to the pink plate. Because there was only one, and you like just me and my brother just hated the white ceramic plates because just putting them down, you had to be kind of delicate, and it was like a real plate. You know, but the pink scratchy plate was like, you know, I could frisbee that thing into the wall, it wouldn't matter. Like, I didn't care about the pink plate, and I wasn't delicate when I put it down. And that's why I love our traditional flatware, Mrs. Jones, is because it looks almost like a kid's tool. Like you could throw it around, beat it up, it doesn't even look like it's great, but it's actually like the highest quality stuff in the world, and you don't have to feel like it's like a delicate little French, like, you know, mini spoon. You know, so I heat it up. I love our white flatware, and some of the stuff I sell the most of, because most people I see already have 7 knives. So again, sell through stories, get the samples, show everything, sell more than just knives. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Please see a staff member. And if you have not picked up your SE2 prizes, please come to the back of the room to pick up your SE2 prizes.